Hi everyone, welcome once again. If you're joining us for the first time, you're highly welcomed. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share our page. And if you might be lost from this point, you can just go back a few steps the way to catch up with us. Continuing. Isn't it better for us to ask the doctor to discharge me from this hospital? Asked Digong with sorrow and anguish beating all over him. You want the doctor to discharge you from what reason? Queried his wife in return to his question. We have to leave here because the situation has not changed. As a matter of fact, it is getting worse. Backed the dog. But you told me just yesterday that your stamina is improving. Should I understand what you told me to be an irony because you were shedding tears at the same time? Have you forgotten about the events of yesterday? I have not. The truth is that these days my thinking at one point is not the same thing as it is at the other moment, confessed the Gog. In that case, his wife advised, you have to bring your faculties together and deal with the problem. It is the thing that nobody will do for you. Again, I think about the financial involvement. Obioha, your neighbor, for our paid for our trip to Idoko and has said that he will pay the bills here no matter how high. Have you forgotten? But you know that before the trip to Idoko we have spent so much and that we equally spent a fortune in the first round of our admission if we stop that, Daddy. I said you should stop reasoning like that. How, Daddy, without knowing she did. Do you want to leave me? What are you trying to decide at the time when a good Samaritan is working with us? We managed to stay afloat when we were selling our belongings in order to survive. What nonsense are you talking now that someone is ready to help us, including our feeding? The problem is that I feel for him. The man is not a relation. He is a neighbor, a friend. But you know that we did not solicit his kindness, did we? I know. We didn't, but even so, we should know that he has his responsibilities as a family man. You mean that we are exploiting him? That is not exactly what I mean. Perhaps you don't know how important your survival is to your wife and children. You mean a lot to us, Daddy. So that even if we should exploit someone for you to live, we don't mind doing so. It occurred to Adebi at that moment that she was arguing with a very sick man, a man whose faculties were not stable at all. She was sorry for the much they had argued and tactfully changed the subject with her taking the initiative. You have a good person in Obioha. Yes, but that is not why we shouldn't consider the fact that he has his own problems. He said with his voice receding, but you don't know me as an inconsiderate person, his wife said. You are not, my dear. I don't imply that you are. Are you offended? I am the one who should be asking you whether you were offended by my response. I was quite involuntary. I'm sorry about it and hope that you will not commit it to memory, my dear. You can be sure I don't have any problems with you. You've been a wonderful companion to me since I married you. I understand it as a slip of tongue because I don't know you for that, he said. Thank you, my husband. Thank you very much for your understanding and for speaking for me. God will heal you soon enough, she ended on a prayerful mood. The relapse was sharp and acute, and it ended to an already deteriorating situation. All the diagnoses carried out on Dikogo for 6 weeks then were hopeless, and these examinations were on weekly basis. The liver was in a very bad state, as revealed by the results of the liver functioning test. The kidney test was not satisfactory either, and as declared by the chief medical consultant, the state of the liver was affecting the kidney. His mood showed that the sickness was getting to a terminal stage. His three other assistants had written a similar report in their progress reports on the cog. It was 4 o'clock a.m. on a Sunday morning. The hospital workers were running helter-skelter in the ward. It showed that all was not well. Departure loomed so large in the ward where the Dikogo was receiving treatment. He had lost his appetite for about 1 week then, and it emaciated him further, reducing him into something like a human skeleton. Occasionally, he took water, pap, and tea, but was unable to take enough of the solid food such as rice, beans, gari, and others. It was very unsightly to look at him on his sickbed. 2 days before that fateful morning, Dikwago had wept unabashedly and in the presence of his wife. It became clear to him and his wife that he was transiting away from the human realm. Thinking about the fate of his wife and children made him to rue. His children would soon be orphans, his wife a widow. Except his neighbor who helped him in hospital, there was no other person to offer any meaningful assistance, he thought. Even if there were people to assist, the affinity between the father and his children was a very important factor in the overall growth and maturation of the children. Adigbe wept along with her husband when it became clear that the cookie was at the verge of crumbling. She worked hard, though to cover up by covering her face with a pillow whenever she could not control her emotions of sorrow. The sickness had weakened the Congo to the state at which he was no longer aware of his environment. The tears on the Gogo reminded Adigwe what her father used to say when he was alive. Her father used to say that in those days, that whenever a man was down to the extent of shedding tears, he hardly ever survived. There was no hope that her husband would make it for up to 2 days. As a matter of fact, she would not be surprised if he passed away moments from then. She was in a world of sorrow. The nurses sent message across to the doctor on call, and before 10 minutes, the doctor responded. First, the doctor checked the cargo's pulsation and discovered that it receded adversely, so adversely that it was no longer sufficient for life. The doctor tried to open the cargo's eyes and discovered that they were static and awful. Another sign that life has gone out of him. He collected the blood pressure apparatus by the side and attempted to pump the machine in order to ascertain the blood pressure. It did not pump. Yet another sign that the man was gone. The doctor ordered everybody around to leave the place for 30 minutes. He himself moved into his own apartment. He came back after the interval and declared that the dog was no more. The money sent to Adigwe on the eve of Dikogo's departure was sufficient to settle the hospital bill and take care of their feeding for a long time. Obioha was traveling out on a business trip and had no time at all to see Dikogo and his wife as he promised. He had thought that Dikogo's discharge from the hospital could happen when he was away. That's why he sent an errand boy to deliver the money to Adigwe. By the time the errand boy arrived at the hospital on the eve of his departure, Dikogo had relapsed into coma. Adigwe was in a world of hysteria. She greeted the young man hurriedly and collected the money from him without counting it. Before the young man knew it, she had discharged him and hurried back to the nurses and doctor for the emergency attention that was needed on Dikogo. The errand boy wanted to see Dikogo, but when he understood that the situation was bad, he had no option other than to leave. The news of his departure, the news of the departure of Obiora was already in town by the time Adibu came back from the hospital. He was involved in an auto crash on his way to board the flight for his business trip. He was rushed to a nearby hospital where he passed on as a result of injuries he sustained on his head. Unknown to the errand boy, by the time he was delivering the message to Adigwe, his boss had passed on. The brothers and sisters and close relations of Dikogo gathered at his Alaba residence to see his wife and children and to hold brief meeting on how to move forward. Adigwe got to know about the departure of Obioha during the meeting. The loss of her husband and a benefactor almost at the same time was too harrowing an experience. She was speechless.